Hello and welcome back to the Sunday League Pundits presented by Betway. I am Brett, joined by Woz today on this wonderful evening. I guess we're recording it on evening. It depends on when you are listening to this, but we got a lot to talk about in the world of football, a lot to talk about in England, Bundesliga race coming down to the wire here. You're disappointed by a team that was playing in the Champions League. I went to an MLS game last week, and we all wrap it up with a little bit of Sunday League. This is going to be a fun episode, as always, Wazzy. How are you today? I kind of disregarded you in that whole intro.
I'm doing good. It's beautiful outside here in Edmonton.
Yeah.
I realized that my cardio is shit. I tried. I was outside doing a little bit of jump rope before this, and I lasted maybe 15 minutes.
15
It's
minutes is
harder
so
than I thought, and my cardio's ass. And the schedule for our Sunday league came out, and I'm looking forward to that. Depending on if we can piece together a roster.
It sounded like it's the thing is that we'll talk about Sunday League a little later on, but it sounds like we have a strength and a position that we haven't in a while.
Yeah, it's weird,
but we'll see if we get there. But
Yeah.
Let's start off with what's going on in world football and club football. Let's start off in England, and I want to start off with the news that at the moment is developing, but by the time this podcast is out, it may be finalized. But it sounds like Chelsea has found their new manager. No, it's not Julian Nagelsmann. It is now the former coach of PSG, Maurizio Pochettino. At least it sounds like as of right now. Is this the right guy? Was this like we've been seeing everything that's going on with Chelsea, their big spending habits, everything basically about Chelsea has become Americanized. It feels like at least this is their third manager this year. Fourth manager. Is it their fourth? It's their fourth technically.
Yeah, it's a great
Like,
question,
is
honestly.
Pochettino really the guy that's going to come in and change the guard here for the Blues?
Maybe. I mean, he has a kind of small reputation of kind of building teams up, but Spurs gave him a lot of time to really work with what they had, and he took them to a Champions League final, almost won a couple trophies, but that's kind of Spurs' heritage, almost winning trophies. um, with Chelsea, it's tough to say because they've had basically no good run of form with any of their managers. They can win a game here or there, score a couple goals, but other than that, yeah, he won League On with PSG. That's
Come
not
on.
not the greatest challenge.
And also, he would have lost it too because he would have been the manager when Lille won. No,
I know Wikipedia is not the best source, but you look at some of his honors, individual achievements. He won the Premier League Manager of the Month in October 2013, September 2015, February 2016, April 2017. So I don't think he was even a Manager of the Month in Ligue 1, it seems. I don't even know if that's an award in Ligue 1, to be honest.
probably is.
Yeah,
but he would have been the manager though of PSG when Lille would have won that title. No,
he won Ligue 1 in 2022.
And then in 2021, it would have been Lille.
I think so, yeah.
It would have been. So,
yeah.
What does that really say? Lille mostly had a regression last year than anything else. So, what does that say? But you do bring up a good point, though, Woz, with those accolades, I guess. He did that in the Premier League. He did that with Tottenham. And Tottenham side we've seen all the stories about that Tottenham team. It was a very interesting team with Maurizio Pochettino. Then the reins were handed to Mourinho, but again, he did it all with the Premier League. So he does have Premier League pedigree, but this just seems a lot like they didn't get their number one guy in Nagelsmann, so their number two guy is going to be Pochettino. It just seems like it's a swing and a miss again from Chelsea.
I think the problem with Chelsea right now is they don't have an identity as a club, right? So it's kind of like let's see what Pochettino brings. Let's see who this guy brings. It's kind of like, all right, you're a good manager. Can you please do something for us? Can you just change the culture, change the identity at the moment? 'Cause we have none. There's no structure. We have way too many goddamn players to deal with. Let's be honest. A lot of these Chelsea players also have not lived up to expectations. I think one, for example, is Cucurella.
Yeah.
I saw somebody on Twitter say he's been kind of a flop. João Felix, what's he done? Right? It's you do sure the manager takes some blame, but a lot of these players have not lived up to a standard they have.
So I was stuck on Tuesday in Toronto, which happened to
Yeah.
be Real Madrid and Chelsea. I
Mm-hmm.
stopped by Boston Pizza there, and they were showing the game on all the TVs there. All of the fans that were there to watch were Real Madrid fans, so it was pretty easy to watch Chelsea get manhandled. But it was
Mm-hmm.
evident there and in that room too that there was just no challenge from Chelsea. There was nothing being put on from Chelsea. You mentioned Cucurella is relatively invisible. You mentioned Joao Felix as well, relatively
Yeah.
invisible. Mudryk has been invisible as well since he came in as well. These are all guys who need to be better. Reece James has been very good, but when he's on the pitch, he's not always been on the pitch. He's been, excuse me, he's been injured. He's been out of the lineup. He has not been consistently in the lineup. And Mason Mount is the most overhyped player in the Premier League. Like this team just doesn't have a lot going. I forget who it was who said it, and I'm not saying it. I just want to preface this, but somebody said that this team is almost closer to relegation than it is to a Champions League spot. Well, I mean, almost technically is because
Mm-hmm.
right now they're sitting what 11th in the Premier League. So like is this
Yeah.
are they in real trouble here? Like, are we kind of seeing a potential downfall here? I don't want to fall into like,
I don't know
oh,
about
like they're the
downfall. I
next
just
Sunderland.
no. I just think they might need a little bit more time to really kind of rebuild the structure of the club and what they want to look like at the moment. I don't think they'll be. I think they'll be kind of in that fight for 8 to 4 for
Mm.
the next maybe a year, 2 years. I mean, it's tough to say because you look at a club like Manchester United who brings in Ten Hag, and all of a sudden they're back in the top four. And sure they've had some issues so far in terms of results, but you look at Chelsea's lineup, and there's just a lot of like I don't know how to portray. You have Raheem Sterling, who's fine. He's a good player.
But
Hakim
again, been injured too.
yeah, injuries are a big problem. Hakim Ziyech, he
Yeah.
hasn't really been anything in Chelsea. Mudryk, you bring up, he's been a flop for that price tag. Good footballer, just hasn't done anything, and he's still young, so there's still time. He's 20. He's 22. I think there's a lot of expectations with what young footballers nowadays. I
Yep.
think people expect a lot out of these 18, 20-year-olds, 22. These guys are still technically kids in some aspects. They're still growing up. Like this is unrelated, but I believe men's brains aren't fully developed until 25 if you think about it, right?
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah. My girlfriend tells me that a lot. Yeah,
Wonder where you
my
got that number from.
yeah. So, also you got Enzo Fernandez, 22
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of pressure, expectations being put on the shoulders of these young Chelsea players, 22 years old. Sure, you see Haaland, you see Mbappe, you see maybe Alphonso Davies. There are certain players who can really play at a world-class level at a young age, but some players, they can't do it consistently. They'll
Yep.
have a performance here and there that really stands out. I think you look at Billy Gilmore a couple of years ago, 18. He played some great starts. I think it was for Chelsea. And where is he now? He's not really talking about it much. You would think by now Billy Gilmore would be a mainstay in this Chelsea lineup with the way he kind of got you know what's he the spotlight was thrown on him, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
It's
100%.
yeah.
And
Go ahead.
you mentioned, I think that's a really good mention too with Billy Gilmore. You can look at the players on this team too, the younger players who have been either shipped off for seasoning in the last couple of years or something like that, like a Connor Gallagher who's now getting pumped up relatively well, but he hasn't had a great season at all for Chelsea as well. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I already mentioned Mount, excuse me, Kai Havertz as well. Kai Havertz has probably been their best attacking
Mm-hmm.
player, and you all know my feelings towards Christian Pulisic. So yeah, it's just been very
I think
unfortunate.
for Chelsea right now, I think what they lack in a sense is maybe experience. I'm looking. I'm trying to.
Right.
I'm looking at their age, the ages of these players. Sure, they have N'Golo Conte, who's a veteran in the Premier League. They've got Thiago Silva. They've got Cesar Azpilicueta, Koulibaly. So they do have some experience, some veterans in there. Edouard Mendy's 31. So it's like I can't really use the experience as an
But
excuse,
they're
but
new
like
players coming in, don't.
yeah,
And the players who are supposed to be coming in to not change the story for this team, because last year
yes,
they were a very good club or a relatively good squad, and just a couple of years ago they won the Champions League.
yeah, and like
But the players that they're bringing in right now are not players who are helping them be take that next step, take the step that they thought they were going to be able to take, especially domestically. And now we're seeing it on the international stage, because if right now they stay where they're at domestically, they don't even have to worry about the
mhm.
international stage. They have to worry about potentially what it smells like in league or in the championship.
Yeah, and then but and if I go back to the age thing, I'm gonna list out some names here that are Enzo Fernandez, Mudrick, both 22, Fafana 22, Connor Gallagher 23, Reece James 23, still good. We all know how good he is. João Felix 23, Kai Havertz 23, Mason Mount 24, Kukureya 24. So a lot of these like players that you're kind of relying on, they're young, they got experience, but and at the end of the day, it also comes down to the club as a whole. It's had a lot of turmoil, managers, everything that went down with Roman Abramovich last year. It's just it hasn't been a great situation for Chelsea to really, you know, hold on to that reputation of a top club.
100%. Alrighty, let's move on from
Yeah,
one club who is having some manager issues to another club who is also on, well, basically their third manager now in Tottenham, as Tottenham, not a very good game against Newcastle. And evidently, that was the last straw for Christian Stellini, as Stellini has been sacked, and in comes none other than the guy who also replaced, I believe it was Pochettino, Ryan Mason. So Ryan Mason comes in. Oh no, it was Jose Mourinho. It was not Pochettino. It was Mourinho. But now they come in. Did you see that scoreline against Newcastle for them?
I did. It was disgusting.
5 goals in the first 21 minutes for Newcastle as they beat them 6-1. Hugo Lloris is coming out here going, "Oh, I'm sorry." What like we talked about Chelsea here, who's in more shambles than Tottenham, but Tottenham should be a better side than this. What is going on here?
Well, in the Premier League, I've noticed some of these smashings for these top clubs happens from time to time. Like I hate to bring up United, but they lost 7-0 to Liverpool. It happens where
But
everything
it's
just
not
falls apart.
Newcastle.
But to be fair, they're third in the Premier League,
Yeah, yeah, but
right?
still not.
Spurs are fifth.
Newcastle's not Liverpool, right? Newcastle hasn't won what, two of the last four titles in the Premier League.
One.
But you're right.
Yeah,
They're a
yeah.
good team. They're a good team.
So I think credit goes to Newcastle for just being able to play their game. When you see a result like this, it comes really down to two things. Everything went right for Newcastle, and everything went extremely wrong for Spurs. Everything that can go wrong went wrong, and it was a perfect match from Newcastle and Spurs. Once again, kind of like Chelsea, don't really have that identity. Look at the lineup. You had Hunman's son, Harry Kane, Kulishevsky, your typical Hjorberg. I can pronounce that name. Jesus
Boy
Christ,
Bear.
Hoiberg. Um, and for Newcastle, all you need is Joe Murphy, Isak, Joe Linton. That's all you need. And fucking skinny ass long man Dan Burn.
I was
Damn, Brett.
curious where you're going with that.
Um,
But he's okay. So Ryan Mason now comes in for Stelleni. This is the second time Ryan Mason has taken over in relief for a manager who
mhm.
Stelleni took over in relief for Antonio Conte, who we all thought was going to make Tottenham better. He evidently didn't, as he then took the reins from Mason at the time, who at the time took the reins from Jose Mourinho, who at the time took the reins from Maurizio Pochettino. This is a long laundry list of managers who have been in and out and in and out and in and out. And you know who hasn't had a long list of players coming in and out and in and out is Spurs. Because you mentioned those
Yeah,
guys like Heung-Min Son, Harry Kane, those are players who, and the big players. Remember at the end of last year, the last game for Spurs, where Harry Kane is clapping like it's his last time there, and then he comes back, and what happens? It's the exact same thing. And like what's going on here? Levy needs to do something, evidently, or just straight up leave.
yeah, yeah.
We know this. Hopefully, this is going to be the
Well,
last.
I honestly don't see Daniel Levy leaving at all, considering all the money he's put into the club and building this new stadium. And
Completely, and that's the issue. That's the issue, though, right? So if it's been if it wasn't Pochettino, if it wasn't Mourinho, if it wasn't Mason, if it wasn't Conte, if it wasn't Stellani, and now if it's not Mason again, if these players are the same, and then you did also bring in some pretty good players in Kulusevski, in Richarlison as well, Christian Romero a couple years ago as well, or a year ago, whatever. Also very good additions, but nothing's changing. You're getting pumped by Newcastle 6-1, and for half the season, Fraser Forster was your goalkeeper. What is
right.
happening? What are you going to do? Because there's Youngman's son isn't going to take this for another 2 years. He's way too good to be here, and we all know. Again, like I said, I hope I'm not. I'm done with going. Oh, maybe it's his last year. I hope Harry Kane gets the
Hmm.
fuck out of there. Please leave. You are better than what you are enduring yourself to. And he will go. I'm sure it'll end up being United. He will go somewhere and be good on a team that he can be good on, and he's going to get said fruits of said labor. It's just sad to see what's going on almost in Tottenham, no?
Well, I think a big question now with Tottenham is, and something we haven't brought up, is that I believe they have just brought in a new chief football officer.
Huh.
Scott Munn is now the new chief football officer, which will be. I'm reading this off the BBC. Spurs have since appointed Scott Munn as chief football officer in a role which saw him join the club's board as well as taking charge of all footballing departments. So, like a director of football, essentially, which is
So
very
where was he
important.
before?
I will take a look real quick because Tottenham dismissed Conte as their manager in late March, and they had Paratici, who was also there, and I don't really know who this guy is. I think he's banned by FIFA.
He was banned by FIFA. He was banned by FIFA?
Yeah, I think this is the guy who was behind Juventus's 15-point penalty. What the fuck?
Stop. And Tottenham's bringing him in?
Tottenham acting head coach Christian Solani says the resignation of managing director of football Fabio Paratici will not affect the team. The 50-year-old lost his appeal against a 30-month ban, which was extended to have a worldwide effect by FIFA from Italian football. Paratici was banned after Juventus, where he was sporting director and manager director, where he was found guilty of false accounting.
Oh my God.
What the fuck?
That's even worse. What do you mean? How is this getting any better? You sacked your manager not once but twice in the season. You sacked the interim manager, dude. You don't even find a new manager. You just straight up sack him. And then what else do? You bring in literal cancer into your front office. What are you doing? This is what I mean. This is why I know.
This is all, yeah. I'm sorry, bro, to cut you off. This is all very confusing because they hired him in June 2021.
Weird.
So this is the best option?
Right. Weird. Huh. But that's what I mean. Like that Levy, this is why Levy needs to
Right.
go. Like this is just horrendous. You can't do that. And it's that this is what I mean. This is so wrong. Tottenham is doing it wrong, and I'll be very interested to see what happens in the offseason for them because again, Kane's gonna go. Does that mean Youngman's son is gonna go as well? Who else is gonna follow suit? Kulusevski, uh, um, uh, I was going to call him Dijon Lover, and I meant to call him Pierre Hoiberg. But there's just a lot of players who I think will be out of the front door
Mm-hmm.
for Tottenham. Alrighty, let's move on from London. Let's go north to Manchester here. And both Manchesters, I guess. Manchester United and Manchester
Right.
City are facing off in the FA Cup final. A Manchester derby for the FA Cup final. After, well, we all knew what was going to happen with City in their semifinal, but it was a very exciting semifinal between United and Brighton. But I think we both want to talk about this, and that is the play of a certain right back who has absolutely brought himself back into the limelight as a player who now is evidently worth his price tag in Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Aaron Wan-Bissaka in January was basically 1 foot out the door trying to find a loan or maybe even a new team for the January transfer window. He has since become probably the best outside of Licha and Rafael Varane defensive players, or at least in the back line for United, and has absolutely been a rock for United in the last couple of weeks. How do you feel about Wan-Bissaka's transformation here, and how do you think it kind of relates to United's success? Not right now, because we've seen United hasn't exactly had the best success so far in the last couple of weeks, but more in the future for United. And what do you see in the future for Aaron Wan-Bissaka?
I think he's really solidifying that right back position for United and just creating that competition with Diego Dallo, which is fine. And honestly, it's not really solidifying that position. It's just having options available in terms of depth. I think that's an issue right now for Manchester United is depth and having players fit for every match. Like, players can get fatigued easily, and have two players who can play in that position is perfect. And I think James Madison had high praise for Aaron Wan-Bissaka as well. Did you
Good.
see what he said?
No.
I believe this is the real account. I can't tell because it's Twitter and they took away verification, but
Fuck you, Elon.
everyone follows him. So Aaron Wan-Bissaka is ridiculously good at 1v1 defending, probably the best in the world, bar none. So many wingers run out of ideas when playing directly against him from Aaron Wan-Bissaka. And then Squawka responds 2,100 players have attempted 100 plus tackles in Europe's top 5 divisions since the start of 17-18 season. Wan-Bissaka has been the best true tackle success rate,
I'm
where
not
he's
sure.
571 attempted tackles, 449 tackles made, 66 fouls, 56 have only dribbled past him.
Wow.
He catches wingers like flies. That's why they call him the spider. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is getting the love he deserves. And it's funny. I think about this because ESPN the other day posted a photo of comparing who do you think is better, Trent or Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Someone quote tweets them. Aaron Wan-Bissaka has one good game and they're comparing him to Trent again? No, it's because Wan-Bissaka has been consistently good for a while now. Trent has been, we've seen how he can defend. It's not pretty. Yeah, he can attack down the wing and pass beautifully. He's a very intelligent footballer, but his defending ability is it's non-existent at times, right? Like Kvaratskhelia turned him into a donut in the Champions League.
But did you see Wan-Bissaka with the ball in that FA Cup? Like he looked like Trent at times. He looked
He has a little bit of attacking ability. He can push the ball up. He's not afraid.
He's quick. I mean,
yeah.
he's evidently quick. He has to be quick to play that wing and play the wing like he does. but he's really been using it more offensively, and you're seeing it now. And put again, like you said, pushing the ball up, putting it into the box. He can play inside the box, and then if the transition's going the other way, he's probably going to be there. Matoma, who again has basically a bachelor's degree in dribbling, didn't complete a single dribble past Aaron Wan-Bissaka. It was closed down. Neymar, exact same thing. Or Mbappe, it was the exact same thing. Though, I mean, hey, Matoma and Mbappe, a little bit different in playing style, but still, and skill. But the constant between the two is Aaron Wan-Bissaka. And it's been great because United is now having these injury issues. So heading into the FA Cup final against Manchester City, who Pep is now saying, oh, we're tired, we're playing all these games, we're exhausted, blah, 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 blah. You never really have to believe Pep, though. He could be a very key piece in this FA Cup if he can stay healthy and depending on who will be available for United. Because let's be real, heading into this it's a derby, it's a final, but it's a derby. Heading into this final, United doesn't have Licha. They don't have Varane. Harry Maguire is out to lunch 38% of the time. It's just they don't look fantastic, and they might not. I mean, they might have to call Tiden Mengi to come in and play. It's not fantastic.
Where's Phil Jones at?
Well, and that's the thing. Liam on his show, he went on to say that the next player for United, the next player up defensively is Phil Jones. And
Yeah,
we saw how that worked last year, right? So I don't know. It just seems
it's
like,
tough to say
yeah,
because you
100%.
can't really be relying necessarily on like a youth academy product to come through. I don't know if there's one available right now. That there's always someone, but like at this moment, you need a with where United are in the season, battling for a Champions League spot. That's the main focus now for United because they're out of the Europa League, which is I would say honestly kind of a blessing in disguise. Which means
Really.
as much as you want to win a trophy, you now have a little bit of a less manage games on your hand. The load management becomes a little bit more manageable. So, but of course, that's kind of a poor excuse. It's like, oh, you should go for every trophy, and I'm sure United want to, but you look at the pros and cons, right? Like, unfortunately, you can't go out and win a trophy, but now you can focus on the Premier League, and you don't have the FA Cup until June 3rd.
Right. The only other center back outside of Phil Jones and Victor Lindelof, we didn't mention Lindelof, is in fact Tiden Mengi,
Mm.
which is a shame.
Harry
And
Maguire.
huh?
Harry Maguire.
Well, we talked about Harry Maguire too, but and then also Luke Shaw's been playing center back too. What are you heading into the FA Cup though? How are you feeling? What's your prediction for it? I know it's
It's
2
really
months
early. It's
away.
it's 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 tough to say.
Is it too early? Come on, Woz. Let's be real here. It's Manchester City and Manchester United. Manchester United is not going to be healthy, and Manchester City is still going to be Manchester City, who's probably going to be coming off winning the fucking league. So,
Yes and
realistically,
no, because for that FA Cup final for Manchester City will be a dress rehearsal for potentially the Champions League final.
that too. So,
Yeah,
what are the odds now that they can win a treble?
very high, but that's also codependent on Arsenal, who may bottle the league. Which I also think, let's Arsenal fans calm down. All right, the season's not done yet. I understand. You Yeah, I looked at
I
the
don't.
games played. It's a little tricky for Arsenal right now, but relax,
Yeah,
relax. But
I don't know, man.
I have to go be a little biased here. I will go 3-2 United in extra time. I
Wow.
can see like a Marcus Rashford winner in extra time and scenes and things you'll love to see. This iconic celebration. He'll do it looking at the Wembley crowd with De Bruyne behind him. But
Now
yeah,
you're just painting way too much of a picture. See,
yeah.
I am far from that. I say 4-1 City. I think it's just I'll be shocked.
Really? Wow.
I mean, yeah, United won the last Manchester derby. Fair enough, but it's different teams. Not even different teams, but we've seen United have some bad results recently, or at least results that didn't go their way. And we have also seen City become the City that we all expected them
Hmm.
to become. So it's a difference in the team. And again, United won't be healthy. But let's move on from England. Let's go, well, to the mainland, I guess. And we're going to talk about the Champions League here. I get you want to get into Champions League, or do you want to talk about Germany?
Champions League first because
Okay, okay, let's do that.
I we're not. I mean, we can't. We're not going to do a full breakdown here, but I think it's fair to say that the Champions League quarterfinals did not go the way that some of us anticipated. For example, Bayern Munich, Napoli, right? Inter Benfica was actually closer. I just saw 3-3. I wasn't really paying attention to that one. The only two matchups I really cared for were Napoli, Milan, Bayern, and City. And I don't know what happened to Napoli, but either injuries are catching up to them in some aspects because they all seem men, but also I think Milan just figured out how to play them.
Yeah, I and they were coming off of a recent matchup against each other too. Like these are teams who have played a lot against each other. And again, in the first leg, you mentioned Osimhen. He wasn't playing in that first leg. He was out. He was injured. So I think they missed him. And we watched that game. We were streaming that game too. It They needed Osimhen in that game, and they didn't have him. And eventually, they only lost 2-1. No, right? On
In the
aggregate,
in the first or second leg.
on the aggregate,
Yeah, it was. So closer than anticipated.
and they scored in the first or in the second game, like
Yes.
in the game that
Yes, they scored a 90
Osimhen
plus at a time.
and who scored it.
Osimhen.
Hmm, weird. So now the question becomes how dependent here we go. Let's try that again. The question now becomes: is A, Napoli too dependent on Osimhen? B, did Milan just end up catching them at the right time? I mean, obviously, this is a two-legged race between the two teams, but AC Milan still deserves their flowers. They won the Scudetto last year, right?
Yeah.
This is still a good team.
Tonali was fantastic, I thought. That guy's so good. Holy shit.
Who's that?
Tonali.
Oh, Tonali. I
I
heard
was like,
Tonali.
what? His
Excuse me.
twin?
Yeah, no, Sandro Tonali is one of my favorite CDMs in all of Europe. I love him. I think he can do so many different things. He's a fucking monster too. Yeah, no, he reminds me a lot of Casemiro too. I think he just does
Hmm.
a lot of things well, and I think he does a lot of things well with the ball and
Yeah.
off the ball too. But yeah, no, and I think he was a major factor in the uh, draw between Milan and Napoli. I think he was a big draw in it, or a big factor in it. The fact that Kvaratskhelia had to do it basically by himself in the first leg, and the thing too is Milan had a great lockdown plan for Napoli in that first leg.
Hmm.
They knew what they wanted to do. They give up opportunities for sure, but that was kind of their game. They wanted to kind of let Napoli play into their hand. And if I'm not mistaken, most of their goals were both goals basically came off the counter, if I'm not mistaken. So, or some form of counter. So, yeah, you were really disappointed by Napoli, eh?
Oh yeah, I think they kind of put themselves on a nice pedestal to be like that dark horse of the Champions League. But to be fair, any of these Italian teams are considered a dark horse in my opinion. Um, even this past weekend, I'm pretty sure they beat Juventus 1-0.
Yeah.
So like it's like Napoli haven't had an issue really conceding goals. It's more so I think the scoring part is dried up for them. 1-0 against Juventus, 1-1 in the Champions League, 0-0 against Hellas Verona. They
Yeah.
scored two goals against Lecce recently. The last time they scored, at least, I mean, they scored 4 goals against Torino back on March 19th. And after that, they lost 4-0 to Milan in the Serie A. So it's like the scoring is just dried up. And I don't know, maybe this is just a good opportunity for Napoli to get experience in the Champions League. It's strange because even like Milan's side's a little bit more experienced. You have like some Giroud in there. Ibrahimovic helps, especially in the dressing room. Like I don't really know what happened to Napoli. It's really hard for me to dissect. I'm not an expert in Italian football. I'm not an I'm a Sunday league pundit. That's what we call it. Got me cool, right? Fucking
My
hell.
question is, and
Yeah.
this might kind of go to what you just said, and this might be a little forecasting, I guess, but what do you think happens with Napoli also in the offseason? Because it
Yeah.
sounds like Osimhen is probably going to be on his way out. There's no way Kvaratskhlia does not have interest from elsewhere. This past year, basically, Napoli had to kind of rebuild with them sending out Insigne and Koulibaly, and I think Mancini off the top of my head. I
Yeah.
might be
And
wrong
you
there.
also Kim and Jay, who's got an interest.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, exactly. That's
Right?
what I
And
mean. Well, and those are the three players basically who came in and stepped in for the players who they just tried to have to replace or sold, right? So, what do you think is going to happen here in the offseason for Napoli?
I think they're gonna try their best to hold on to their players. I think their manager Spalletti,
Yeah.
he's mentioned like how they're not gonna just like rip apart the team. They're gonna try their best to kind of keep this core apart for as long as they can, maybe for another season, especially with Kvaratskhelia and Osimhen. And I think they really want to take another run of that Champions League. Probably like they're gonna win the Serie A, right? They're planning the
Yeah.
parade. It's happening.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
mean, it
it's
would be a
they
very
yeah they
be,
they have a reason to celebrate at least this year, right?
yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're very disappointed with how the Champions League ended up, considering how well they're doing in the league. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, Barcelona I think might win the Liga, and they're not even they're not even in Europe anymore, right? Like this
Yeah.
happened. Bayern Munich, for example, they're falling apart. So Napoli I think should still be proud of themselves, but they might lose a player. I think they'll lose a core player
Right.
in the transfer window, and I think the best bet's probably Osimhen. But I know Spalletti's going to try his damn best to convince those players to stay.
Alrighty, you mentioned the team was. Let's get talking to them. Let's head to Germany.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Bayern Munich and the fall of Bayern Munich, almost evidently, in the Bundesliga as they no longer hold the lead in Bundesliga as Borussia Dortmund now leads the Bundesliga 60 points on top of the table. Second is Bayern Munich, and Bayern Munich may have lost Alphonso Davies for a little bit
Hmm.
here as he did have to leave early in their previous game. I believe it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong here. I'm just going to try and pull it up before here. I believe they played. Oh no, it was Mainz. I was going to say Hertha Berlin, so I was wrong. But in their last game against Mainz, Alphonso Davies was subbed off early on with a hamstring injury. Is this the unraveling of Bayern Munich right in front of our eyes now?
Yes and no. I think internally they probably have some issues. I think I saw a report about Bayern Munich and Sadio Mane. It has not been a great time with him there. Um, I also if I'm looking at Transfer News Live tweeted this. Apparently the source is Pletty Goal, so he's a Sky reporter. He says many changes are expected at Bayern Munich this summer. Sadio Mane will leave if there is a good offer. The
Mm,
management believe he is neither demanding with himself nor efficient at the club. Serge
mm.
Gnabry is deemed to be out of shape by the management. They are not happy with his performances since renewing his contract, so it's expected he'll be sold. And the management also believes the side are better without Thomas Muller. He could be losing his starting spot next year, which would be wild to think. To think that Thomas Muller may not be in a Bayern Munich uniform next season is crazy. That's when I
Yeah,
think of Thomas Muller, I think of Germany and I think of Bayern Munich. I can't
yeah,
think of him at any other club. And I think the same could be said of like when Philip Blom was there. Bosch and Schweinsteiger to an extent. He ended up leaving from Man United, Chicago Fire, but man, if Thomas Muller leaves, that's the end of an era.
yeah, yeah. And you know what? I heard earlier this year that maybe United might swipe him up too.
That'd be something. And also, people were responding to this. Like, no mention of Gretzka. Feels that the name Bayern fans mention the most about not deserving to be in the team.
What?
I don't know. That's weird.
Wow. See, and I was actually going to mention Goretzka. Think of those core players there. Like you mentioned the core players at Napoli. Think about the core players at Bayern. You got Kimmich, you got Goretzka. You mentioned Muller, but I'm more thinking of the younger core that's going to be coming up in their next uh, generation. Basically, will Alfonso Davies stay too? Because
Mm-hmm.
apparently he's getting a lot of interest from other places, rightfully so. But I think it's interesting that you mentioned that there may be turmoil within the group.
Here's a
Because since
question.
Thomas Tuchel
Mhm.
did step in, they have won one match, maybe against Freiburg. Other than that, 2-1 loss the game before in the Pokal to Freiburg, 3-0 to City, 1-1 draw to Hoffenheim, 1-1 draw to City, which was also evidently a 4-1 loss on aggregate to City, and then a 3-1 loss to Mainz. And now people are going, whoa, whoa, you just sacked Nagelsmann and now you guys aren't doing anything that impressive with Tuchel. Evidently, now there may be some sort of turmoil. You said? Oh, maybe it's the downfall. This
Mhm.
seems like it might be.
It's more so a transitional period, right? I'm like the
There's a
Alfonso
difference
Davies.
between a transitional period, though, was and having turmoil. You can have a transitional
Mhm.
period, have issues, and move on. But if there's these things constantly happening, I don't know if it's a transitional period.
Yeah, and it's tough to say what happens with Bayern Munich now because you're no longer in the Champions League, right?
Mhm.
That driving factor, that motivating factor is gone. You need to aim for the Bundesliga. And now maybe the question is being asked, is that motivation drive to win the Bundesliga again still there for Bayern Munich? It
Hmm.
should be there. You would anticipate for these professional athletes, these professional footballers who've been winning for 10 years now. Yeah, we should always be motivated, but Dortmund right now have a prime opportunity to really, hold on to this top position and win a title. And it's really Dortmund just need to really pounce on Bayern's downfall right now. The problem I find is that Borussia Dortmund always find a way to kind of shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Like they might lose a game here before the season's done, and then Bayern wins a game, and the table switches. So Dortmund need to be very focused here. They need to know like, hey, we have a great opportunity to finally lift the Bundesliga title after 10 years. Give Marco Reus
Yeah.
probably a nice send off to his career because we know he's gonna probably retire soon, right? A recent German international just retired, Jonas Hector. He's like
Oh.
30. The guy played at the
He's 30.
2016 Euros for Germany, and I think
Wow.
at the World Cup. Like, I don't know. So it's German footballers tend to I've noticed retire a bit early. I feel like once they've like kind of done their thing, like all right, I'm done. Like Schweinsteiger retired a bit early. Philip Lahm, Tony Cruz is probably going to retire. I think he's retiring at the end of the season, right?
Yeah.
Like
True.
they just tend to retire early. I've noticed. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
actually a common trend. So but yeah, and maybe Union Berlin comes out of nowhere and says, "Hey, we'll take second place." I mean, they've got 55 points.
I was going to say they're only 5 points back from top spot. So
Yeah,
that 2 wins, 2 losses each way. Not too bad.
so I
The
would.
remaining schedule for Borussia Dortmund looks like this: Bochum on this weekend, Wolfsburg and Gladbach and Augsburg, as well as Mainz, all in May, and then that wraps up their season. Honestly, that's all they have. So they have 5 games left in the year: Bochum, Wolfsburg, Gladbach, Augsburg, and Mainz. And those teams aren't exactly. Mainz is the closest or the top team that they are playing in seventh. Wolfsburg is in eighth. Gladbach is in 10th. Augsburg is in 13th, and Bochum is in 15th. So that's
Hmm,
not a bad schedule if you're looking to win the Bundesliga, if you ask me.
and yeah, no, yeah, it's possible. I mean, Borussia Dortmund's biggest challenge has always been Bayern Munich in that head to head match, and usually it's that Bayern versus that De Klassiker that really kind of you know gets Dortmund off the rails, right? Once
Yeah,
you lose that, it's like, well, that's Bayern's league, and I thought that was going to happen. I'm like, yeah, it's over. All right, shut it down, give the title to Bayern, wrap it up in a gift. Good job, Dortmund. You fucked it again, but Dortmund are now back in, and they're in first, which is beautiful to see, and it's great for
yeah,
football and great for German football, in my opinion. Um,
absolutely.
so many people have been wanting to see Bayern fall and lose the title, and finally could happen. Small chance, but fingers crossed. I have a Dortmund kid. I jumped on their bandwagon when they had Blaszczykowski and Piszczek and Lewandowski, the Polish trio,
Yeah, I can
legendary trio, man.
imagine.
They were vibes. That team, Brett. I mean, I know you. When did you get into football?
Well, I got into football at a very young age.
But like
I
recently,
was
did you get back into it?
yeah. Like it was one of those sports. I always kept tabs on football, but then it became like my number one sport again. Like very like recently enough, like 2018
Bro,
ish.
I'm telling you, go on YouTube and watch highlights of the 2011 Borussia Dortmund team. They were class. The streets will
Yeah.
never forget. Gotza, bro, he was sick.
Oh
Shinji
yeah,
Kagawa at Dortmund. And then Marco Reus came in. And then they had Blaszczykowski. And then a young Ilkay Gundogan, man. They were vibes. They had great, like, just, working class players. And Jurgen Klopp really got the best out of them. And, oh, man, like, if I'm going to bring up some names, Borussia Dortmund
prime
player.
Gotza though. When Gotza, because that was around when he won or scored the game winner. No,
That was,
because that was
yeah,
2016 that he would have won
14.
it. 2014. Yeah, there you go. 2016 was an Olympic year. There we go.
But yeah, just if like Borussia Dortmund 2011 club profile, I love Transfer Market because they can bring it up to you. So the 2011-2012 Borussia Dortmund team, Roman Weidenfeller, God, he was class at the time. He was only 30. Um, Marcel Schmelzer was a great left back. Mats Hummels before
Yes.
he went to Bayern when I thought he was at his best. The Brazilian Felipe Santana. You had the Bender brothers. Sven Bender. No, I think Lars Bender played for Leverkusen at the time. You also had who else? Ivan Perisic was there. You had
Ooh.
Mohamed Zidane, which I don't know if any relation to Zinedine. Lucas Barrios, Paraguayan legend. Terrence Boyd. Do you know
Woz is
Terrence?
going through it right now.
Yeah.
Where's Boyd from? That sounds hella
U.S.
American. Yeah.
You also had Kevin Grosskreutz. This guy was a legend. I mean, he was kind of like one of those streets we'll never forget, guys, because
Ah.
he was an extremely hardworking guy. He played for the badge. He won the World Cup with Germany, and then his career took a huge fall from grace. I think he
Why?
went from the Bundesliga to like the 5th division in like
What?
a span of Kevin Grosskreutz, man. Let me look at his fucking transfer history here.
How is that possible?
So
Did something happen? Like
I
off the
can't
field?
remember, but in 2015 he went from Dortmund to Galatasaray, then Galatasaray to Stuttgart, then Stuttgart without a club, then he signed for Darmstadt, and then he went to Darmstadt to a club called KFC Uerdingen in
Excuse me?
2018.
Bless
they
you.
they are KFC Uerdingen. I'm butchering that, but they are a 5th tier German club. And
No way.
next thing you know, he gets a transfer to some other club in the 5th tier.
Say it. Say it.
TuS Bungenhausen.
Yeah, that was worth it. That was worth
Bungenhausen.
it.
I know I've got some German friends from Oilers Nation. So. But yeah, like I love him going on this tangent about Borussia Dortmund because it's just they were vibes FC back in 2011 to 2013 when they went on that run of the Champions League. I cried when they lost that final, bro. That's
Did
how
you?
invested I was in that team. I'm not
love it.
kidding you. I had a dream that they're winning the Champions League. I ask Lucas back then, bro. I had a heart attack almost when they beat Real Madrid in the semifinal.
Yeah.
Because Lewandowski scored a hat. Okay, I'll stop. I'll stop going too far.
This guy's going through his war flashbacks. Alrighty, Wazzy, let's move on then. If you're going to stop there, let's move on. Let's move on from Europe. Let's come here to North America. And this is mostly just kind of a story for me.
Yeah.
But I did mention earlier on that I was in Toronto just last week. And while we were in Toronto FC happened to be facing off against Atlanta United. Earlier, we literally bought our tickets, I think, that morning. and we got row 4 in the corner. I'll send you some videos if you want to put in here, but they went down. We just stepped into the stadium. We were a couple of minutes late because of our Uber couldn't find us, but we got there in time. Oh no, you know what? It wasn't on the Uber. It was some idiot parked off on the road, wrong spot, whatever. We show up in about the 10th minute. That's when we sit down. And while I was in the washroom when we first stepped in, none other than Georgios Giamakos scored for Atlanta United, putting them up by 1. But you know who my favorite player on TFC is, right? He wasn't paying attention. He wasn't listening. So now he's trying to figure out what I just said.
Favorite player on TFC is Javinko.
Almost. No, it's Richie Larea. And in the first half, Richie Larea gets a perfect ball from none other than Bonantes. Federico finds him perfectly. In comes Larea. Larea rips one into the net. Unfortunately, it wasn't Ruddy in net for Atlanta United. I really want to see it, but Larea rips it into the net, and he comes and celebrates right in front of us. Great knee slide, does all the emotes he possibly can. It was a great night. But what I really, it ended up a 2-2 draw. TFC ended up tying it in the last kick of the game. Great game.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why I want to bring it up is just the experience of football in Canada. You stepped into that place, and again, I stepped in. We walked in on like the opposite side of where we should have been, and I was using the washroom. First thing I stepped in, like I mentioned, use the washroom, and all you could hear was the drumming from the section, the supporter section. All they're doing is singing and thumping, and it's right above you. And everywhere you went in that stadium, the supporter section, there were flags waving around all over the place. There was singing all over the place. The section we were in, the people knew each other. They were all talking about, oh, last game. Oh, I've been here for X amount of years. I've been a season ticket holder for this long and blah, blah, blah. And it was packed out. Everybody was getting gear. Everybody like buying stuff. Everybody was buying gear. Everybody was getting into the game. And this was my second official MLS game, third MLS event. And was like, I don't, you went to an MLS game, so we'll talk about your MLS game here in a second, but just being there and this was my first Canadian MLS game. It was such a good representation of the game in Canada that I want to go to more games. I want to see more TFC games, but it's so great to see the MLS represented and Canadian MLS represented so well inside a stadium. Outside of the stadium, we saw a whole bunch of TFC jerseys outside of the game day too. So I just really wanted to mention that because the MLS, again, I'll always be a big supporter of the MLS and big pumper of MLS propaganda, I guess, because it's so underrated. And I don't know about your experience that you had with the LA Galaxy game, but it was such a good feeling to be at a football stadium and cheer on a Canadian football team.
Yeah, my experience, our experience, the 90th minute crew originally, we went back in 2019 and it was awesome. We went to LA Galaxy. We wanted to watch Zlatan, and fortunately, we got to see him score a bicycle kick. It was pretty sweet, against New England Revolution. It wasn't like the most exciting game in the world, but I think it was interesting to see the supporters section for the first time because I never saw that. We weren't in there, but you could see a bit of I think there was a bit of a fight breaking out. I have no idea why, but it got pretty fiery. Not crazy, but it was just a fun. I liked it. It was fun. I wish the game was more back and forth, but that's football. Sometimes you have a dull match, and fortunately, I think they lost the game. I don't remember. I don't. I know Zlatan left the pitch immediately. He did not go say and clap the supporters. He just left. What else?
LA fans are good, man. Sorry, no, you go. You finish your thought. We'll go back to LA fans.
what caught me off guard about the MLS is how American it is. Actually, like that sounds silly, but you got fireworks going off after the national anthem. Like that doesn't happen
Yeah.
here in Canada for like CFL games. I'm pretty sure. In England and Europe, they don't do national anthems. And in my opinion, I think professional sports in North America can do away with the national anthem. I think it's a waste of time. But that's just me. But yeah, it was a good time. I think the price of beer was expensive. Like it was $24 for a beer. I think like
Dude, it was so okay. Yeah, that is the one thing about yeah, America, because it wasn't that bad at the TFC game. I think it was only like $12, which isn't too
yeah.
bad. But I went to the LAFC game, so and I want to mention that too because let's talk about LA fans in general. But it was like 18 American dollars for a beer at the LAFC game. Now, did I have 6 or 7? Maybe, but we're not going to talk about that. It's way too expensive. It's
you
it's
know,
crazy like that. But that's the American side of it, right? Like that you met they had a flyover for the LAFC game that I went to. The entire first half there was a helicopter just pacing around the entire time. I think it was a camera, I think for like CBS or Fox or something. But it was just always ringing around. A lot of the announcing too was pretty Americanized, but
yeah.
what I realized wasn't very Americanized was the supporters, was the fans. And you mentioned the supporting or supporter section for at the LA Galaxy. I'll talk about the LAFC
They're
supporter
wild.
section first. Dude, it was crazy. It was they never stopped singing. It was I watch LAFC games on Apple TV now, and all their chants, I'm there and I'm singing it because you could not catch on to it because it was going on for 90
Mm-hmm.
straight minutes that you just found figured it out. You realized what it was. The supporters were great. There's a lot of heritage that comes with Los Angeles and the heritage, especially. And I found this with LAFC, the Latin heritage that they have in South American type football and Central American, and especially since Mexico is so close too, there's that influence as
Yeah.
well. I don't know how you felt with the LA Galaxy games, but LAFC supporters were just fantastic, so loud, so into it. But I kind of want to hear your side with that. Do you think? How do you feel about LA fans in general?
I think they're pretty awesome, especially from what I've seen from you and the on TV. I think they can get pretty passionate and they bring that kind of Latin influence from
Yeah,
their culture, which is awesome. I think Latin football in general is fucking awesome. It's like
yeah,
it's a party. That's what it is. It's you compare Latin football and football fans to England. It's different. I feel
yeah.
like I don't know. I feel like I don't know how to describe it. I just feel like when you watch, especially in MLS, you watch LA Galaxy or LAFC, and when the games matter a lot, it's a party. They're always
Yeah.
having a good time. So
It's a
it's tough.
festival of the game.
That's a perfect way to put it. Yeah, like when I watch, awesome supporters like in the championship, for example, I don't view it as a festival,
Right.
right? It's weird. It's like more of a
Right.
church. Does that make sense? More
Yeah.
of a
No.
cult.
Careful. Yeah, no, you're right though. No, that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
German fans are
Um
great.
who is?
Germany.
Oh yes, German fans are fantastic. But just to wrap up on that note too, I think with the oh no, what I did want to mention too is that Fubo used to have like Liga Mekis on
Yeah.
their stuff, and I used to watch the shit out of it. I was a Club Tijuana fan. I would watch Club Tijuana football. They'd always have a certain game. I remember last year when we would come back from our outdoor season, which we will get into our Sunday league in just a second here. But I remember coming back from Sunday league games and getting ready for the shower, and there was just like Chivas and Club America playing, and I'd just be sitting there at like 9:30 p.m., like half naked, having the shower running, going, "Oh, come on, enjoy!" Like it was great. All you heard was the drumming and the singing. It was amazing, and
Yeah.
I hope. And this the reason why I bring that up mostly is because football, bring it back. Let us watch it again, please. So sorry, that was just
So you're
mostly that.
telling listeners and viewers that Liga MX Mekis deserves more love.
Yes, 100%. Oh my God, 100%. It is so electric to watch. It is so electric. But alrighty, let's wrap up today's episode with our conversation about, of course, it's a Sunday League, pundits, as always, with our Sunday League. As you mentioned earlier, was our Sunday League schedule has been released, and we're
Yeah.
getting a little jittery. But before we get into that, and we do have another story as well pertaining to soccer inside of our sport, or inside of our city, I should say. But before we get into that, make sure that if you have any stories around your Sunday league or the teams that you play for, any games that you've been to or anything like that, make sure you hit us up on our social medias at the 90th minute. If you don't already follow us, just look up the 90th minute on basically all of your social medias. We'll be there. But make sure you message us your stories and we will read them here on the podcast as we are doing the show, and we may feature one of your stories. But let's get back into our Sunday League. As you mentioned, was our season is dropping on May 9th. You right? May 9th?
Yeah, my ninth.
Dude, I am getting excited really, because but you mentioned the cardio. I don't know if my cardio is going to be
I thought about
impressive.
that too, and I remember last year that my cardio was pretty shit going into the season as well, and I still
Yeah.
somehow managed to get through it. And maybe I just got to go for more runs and more footy practices as the season goes on. But like I remember last year, I played our first Sunday League match, and I don't think we had subs. But like the nice thing about outdoor footies, you can kind of control how much you run. It's not as
Yeah.
fast paced as indoor, especially at our division. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna look at our division real quick here, and it's like I remember last year it was like early May we came back, and the thing is I recently just had COVID at the time,
Oh
so my
yeah.
lungs were kind of went through something. So
Yeah.
um, our first game is May 9th, 7 o'clock. We're playing a club called Minty Fresh.
We played them last year too.
I think so. We also have a Sherwood Park Tropics, which Liam Roman here on the ninth minute also plays on.
Yeah, and we're playing against Liam
We also
Monroe.
have Slushy FC.
I feel like I've heard of them
I,
before.
I don't know if I've ever heard of those guys, but
But I
that could go.
wanted to mention though, Ozzy, I think what we should do is we should be bringing a camera to our game against Liam Harobin and have a
That'd be
little
great.
bit of a SLP
Yeah,
versus the extra time deal.
yeah. That'd be that. I'm trying to take a look if any of these teams have.
Maybe we'll have a little wager too. We'll have
Yeah,
a
well,
little wager with him.
Slushy FC. I'm not sure if this might be their first year, which I hate this because sometimes in these local leagues in your city, when you're in the lowest division, sometimes a team will just pop out of nowhere with like who just want to like climb the ranks,
Yeah.
which fucking sucks for teams like us who like just want to play because they're like, oh, we're gonna crush everyone because we know we're good.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
That's
credit
when
to
you
you.
start two-footing people.
Yeah,
Um,
fuck you.
But it seems like we are going into the season with a issue that we haven't had at all, and that is potentially a lot of goalkeepers here, right?
Yeah.
Because last year, our goalkeeper, great goalkeeper, he is a really good goalkeeper, but sometimes it's just like all of us. Sometimes we just have other commitments. We couldn't show up. And then Liam Peace would have to go into the thick ginge, would have to go into net
Net.
for us. And
Yeah.
he's a good goalkeeper too, but I love having him up there out front in our outfield. So now it seems like we might not have one, not two, but potentially three goalkeepers that could be helping our team here.
Well, hopefully, because last season in outdoor, our Sunday league team only scored 16 goals and we conceded 86.
Hey, it's not 100. It's not 100. I want to score a goal this year. Do you think I can?
You probably could, depending on the team. Minty Fresh finished fourth in our division with 9 wins. So, all right. But I'm interested to see how some of these other teams will play out. I know Sherwood Park Tropics, we played his team before in indoor the year before you joined, and they weren't great. No offense, Liam. To be fair, they had commitment issues, kind of like us. So, but I just hope for us, our sake, there's more beatable teams that are kind of around our level. Every division has a couple teams that kind of just beat the piss out of everybody else.
Yeah.
And especially like Division 4 where we're at. And I
Yeah.
also have to put like a recruitment post because I think we need to find some more players. So Slushia, you got Hussar, you got Korea, Western Eagles. Not what the fuck. There's a couple things I know that could kick our ass.
But before we move on to our final piece of business
Yeah,
here, Waz, you play right back. I am a central defensive mid for our team. What are your expectations for your position this year?
I
You
probably
please,
will. Huh?
please, for the love of God, can you, for me personally, for you this year, figure out where the ball is dropping, please?
That's hard for me, honestly.
I know because the
My
amount of times
goal
I watch the
is
ball sail
to
over your head is immense.
do maybe an overlapping run or going forward at least once. If
Okay.
no, because I'm being honest, I probably will likely only go up to our halfway line in a right back. That's too much running, man. I'm good. You know, I got yeah. Knowing us, we're gonna be hemmed into our zone the whole time.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Just get the ball to Hunter and it's fine.
yeah,
And for me, I kind of similar. I always talk. I want, you know what I want? I really want either a goal or like another bar. I just want
yeah,
to hit a post or something. I want it to be close because my type of game is very defensive. I tackle a lot. I recover balls. I can get uh, uh, I'm very good in that sense, but there's just I want to be a little more offensive, and maybe even an assist would work. I would be okay with an assist. That's what I really want to work on is just my ball movement. But
hmm
let's wrap up with an event that we went to recently here in the city, and that is the Mini World Cup. The Mini World Cup is an event that is ran every year here in Edmonton with all bunch of different countries. And it is an exciting time. And we went to the final between India and Scotland. And man, was it fantastic. Wazzy, you got a bunch of footage from it. You posted some videos as well around it. But why don't you kind of take it away on the Mini World Cup here?
yeah. So the Mini World Cup final we attended was awesome. Like the atmosphere was great and just generally a fun. It was a great match. It was a 4-4. Went to penalties. There's some awesome goals for like a local event in your city that's football oriented. It's perfect. Like it's the only issue is just finding a place to sit, I guess, because it gets so packed. And the viewing era seating is not the best. And it was funny seeing people potentially almost getting arrested or getting handcuffed because they were sitting like standing behind us. But it's a
Yeah.
safety hazard apparently, right? Like, too many people, too much weight will bring it down. Like I don't get because you have so many people sitting on. Never mind.
But it
Um,
was crazy though. Like you bring that up. Like, okay, so
yeah.
we showed up. Game was at what? 7 o'clock?
Yes.
We showed up at 5:45 and the doors weren't open yet. And there were still other people who were there before us. And so we showed up. We walk in at 6 o'clock, get to our seats, and we waited. And everybody started like peeking in. There were people who came and sat in front of us and went, "This is busier than we've ever seen it." Like normally they were there when they showed up at their normal time and were able to get our seats with the back support at the back. They weren't there on time and
Mhm.
they were sitting in front of us. The people were, it was packed in the bars. And you mentioned behind us at the bleachers. So with the soccer centers that we have here, there's bleachers at each of the
Mhm.
rinks that there are. But then there's like chain link fence at the back of each row. So then
Yeah.
you can kind of stand at the top and see just over top and see the field. And that is where people were lining up behind us to catch this game. And that was where like security was going up and going, "Oh, get down, blah, blah, blah." But like they said, there was like 70 people all on those back bleachers. What were they going to do? They couldn't do
So
anything. They
yeah,
just gave up on it.
which is fair. Like, what are you going to cause a fucking riot?
Yeah,
Because
literally.
people are trying to watch a game that they paid money to go into the facility. Which, I mean, in the same sense, okay, if you're paying to come into our facility, you're also abiding by our rules. Like they
Understandable.
do have rules, right?
Understandable, but don't
But look,
oversell the game then.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I worked at these facilities. I mentioned this like for like at least 3 years, 3.5 years. Um, Working in that tournament can be a pain in the ass for an employee because you have to be kind of like a Karen. And then,
Yeah.
for example, like before the final, there'll be times where people are trying to watch the game by standing up there. I'm like, I have to go. I'm like, hey, you gotta get down. And people are like, why? I'm like, bro, it's my job. I don't know. It's a safety
Right.
hazard apparently, and people will be a pain in the ass. And
Yeah.
then like
But
and it
there's
sucked for me because I don't want to be that guy who gets verbally abused for something like that.
right.
Even like for the players, there's a rule which they don't enforce this during the regular seasons, but you have to go to players who are warming up in the hallway. It's like, hey, you have to go back in your dressing room. You can't be out until 5 minutes remaining. And they're like, why? What the fuck? I'm like, bro, I don't make the rules. It's a rule. I don't
I
want to get
mean,
in
it's a
trouble.
dumb one, but yeah, I get what you're saying. And that was the thing too, is that it wasn't an employee who was going over there and saying anything. It was a security
Yeah,
guard. Who
yeah.
then at one point, like I looked back there, and he had his handcuffs out, and he had like a baton out, and you're like,
And
what
honestly,
are you
can I be
doing?
honest? These security guards probably don't want to arrest anyone. They probably also think
No.
these rules are dumb.
Yeah, 100%.
Like
Like they're
honestly,
put into a bad situation because, like you said, they don't want to. I mean, that's an arrest. That is
and
paperwork that they have to fill out. That is a whole
also
process.
working there as a football fan sucked because I love the culture of the sport and sometimes felt like the facility managers didn't give a shit about that. They only cared about the rules, the money, which is fair. Like, they're not football fans. None of them were. Like
Yeah.
they probably can't name a single Premier League team. I won't lie. And they probably tune into one World Cup match. And it's like, you know, I remember this one time I was working there, and these Bosnian supporters were chanting, and they were, bashing, not bashing, but stomping their feet on the stands.
Yeah.
And my supervisor was like, "Hey, tell them to go stop." I'm like, "Yo, those are
No.
Bosnians, and they look like they'll say some things to me. I can tell." So instead, my supervisor kind of decides, "Okay, I'm gonna go tell him whatever," and then she goes there. She's like, "No stomping, no stomping." She walks around, and then I think one of the guys said like, "You bitch" or something like that. Just like absolutely like just yeah. It's
Yeah.
unfortunately they want you to be a goody two shoes, and you can
Yeah.
be loud, but don't be too loud. And like go to
Which is
Europe.
weird
Yeah,
because let's wrap this up because
yeah,
now
yeah,
we're
yeah.
getting just a little personal. But I played ball hockey there at the soccer centers for 15 years, for a
Yeah.
long time, and it was like some of the stuff that would be happening in those stands were crazy. Again, bumping, banging on stuff. Like, yeah, no, 100%. And the weird thing is that for hockey, like I didn't stand up in the stands when I would go watch games. I would stand down at the bottom where the cutout was and watch the
Yeah.
game there. So yeah, no, it just weird.
either, Brett. You're not supposed to do
Yeah.
that either.
Oh, I know. Yeah. But
Have some good
alrighty,
fun.
we're getting a little too past the game here in Sunday League Pundits. So let's wrap it up there. This has been a long one. So thank you for joining us all the way through here. You can find us on social media if you haven't already at the 90th minute. Well, just look up the 90th minute. We have the 90th minute official, the 90th minute underscore. So just look up the 90th minute and you will find us there. Remember to send us your Sunday League stories, and we will probably end up reading them here on the podcast as well. So send us your
Yes,
stories
and
there.
also just to say quickly, we hope to have another podcast out next week. Our schedules are a little weird due to the Stanley Cup playoffs,
Yeah.
so that's why we didn't have one last week. So don't worry, we're trying to be consistent. It's just work sometimes.
Edmonton
Yeah,
Oilers, baby.
conflicts.
Also, before we do move on, let's talk about some content too before we move on. Our final episode of this FIFA career mode will be coming out soon, but we have already been in the works for our next FIFA series. This one's going to be fun. So I'm really looking forward to this one, Woz. I'm putting a lot of work into this one
Thank
already
God,
for
that's
a little
beautiful.
prep, but it is going to be fun. So look out for that. Look out for our season finale, as you may find out where Rasta ended up signing with the Premier League. So let's wrap up there, Woz. This has been a fun one. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Make sure you find us on social media at the 90th minute. Until then, stay safe. Don't do anything I wouldn't do.